Welcome to the Mind is Psychic, where we talk music, addiction, comedy, culture. If you like this content, please leave feedback and subscribe. Let's get into it. On this episode, I want to discuss another addiction, and this addiction is food addiction. Food addiction, I would say, is up in the top 5, in my opinion, meaning I believe a lot of the population uses overeating as a coping skill, as something that makes them feel comfortable. And with that said, I believe it's in the top 5, if not maybe higher. Fast food has become a mainstay in America for decades now. Unhealthy eating way over what you should be, meaning portion control. The fact that we continue to do this, and why I bring this up is because I am the biggest proponent of being healthy. I say it all the time, but my actions, I don't follow through. For years, I've eaten so unhealthy, fast food, not cooking for myself. And I believe that's one of the main reasons, other than the number one reason of overeating, is because that's a coping skill for me. So how do we figure this out? How do we get back to a normal portion control so we have an idea and a ratio and we can measure and stuff like that? I know for me, for instance, I'll sit down with a bag of chips and that was one portion to me. Now, that may have been 4,000 calories, but that was one portion to me because that was my coping skill at the time. And I've done this for years. And then, also throughout the years, I've also done a lot of, weight loss and then do really good for a little bit and then start eating again to an extreme. So I wanted to, about 8 months ago, I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling good. I got my blood test results back and they weren't good. So the first step was when I was taking a medication for sleep, I noticed, not right away, but over the course of a year or so, I was eating exponentially, like 4 times of what I was eating usually. And there were times probably when I would eat 8,000 calories with no exercise. And my health would, my blood test would come back and the doctor would be like, okay, just get on a diet, do the Mediterranean diet, whatever, you need to lose weight. And of course I didn't listen. But about 8 months ago or so, I met with one of my doctors and I'm like, I got to get off this one particular med. I've noticed that, and I've done a ton of research on this med for sleeping. And I'm like, I need to do something different, get off of it, whatever. So I titrated down finally, and then I completely quit altogether. So then literally within 2 days of even going down the milligrams, I noticed my hunger. I just didn't have any appetite. I knew that one medication after doing all that research was it. It was one of the parts that made me want to eat more. So doing that for so long, over years and years, I decided that, like I mentioned earlier, I was done. I needed to figure something out. And when I made that decision that, okay, that's the first step, because I used to be the 0 to 100 guy on everything. And as we all know, for most of us, that doesn't work. Over the years, I've decided and I figured out how to do things in moderation and don't go from one extreme to the other, especially when it's in like trying to get healthy, trying to lose weight, trying to do all of that stuff. So what I ended up doing after taking the meds off, I've stopped taking the sleeping med and feeling like, oh my God, I can actually, I'm not eating as much. And it was to the point where I would forget to eat because I didn't feel hungry. Well, of course, that's not, you have to eat and drink and all of that, but trying to be more healthier. And I didn't go from like starting to do like a 100% weight loss, new meal plan type deal. What I did was just figure out, okay, just do portion control. And I've noticed throughout my life that when I've done portion control and eat it semi healthier, I did feel a lot better. But I've also noticed over years and years of my food addiction incongruence with my alcoholism. And those two definitely don't go together. Definitely not. Just you want to eat more. You want to eat because you want that, you want to feel when you drink, you don't want to have an empty stomach. At least I didn't. I needed something to coat my stomach with some type of food or whatever. And then I was so, inebriated most of the time that it didn't matter what I was eating, really, the amount I was eating. So I would just go for it. But I've noticed that having that hunger, that needing, that wanting to eat, to overeating is just, I was done. I'm like, I'm almost 40. I need to figure this out. I just, when my doctor said, I asked, I'm like, can you refer me to, a weight loss specialist? And the first thing they did was refer me over to a bariatric surgeon. I was not having that yet. That is one thing for me that I was just not willing to do at this moment, because the weight thing, it's a behavior of mine that I know I can control because I've done it before and I've kept weight off for a bit. So it's not something for me that I don't think was necessary at that time. So I called them. They got me actually to like a weight loss clinic, and stuff like that. And, with work and all of that other stuff, I kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. To this point, I've put it off. I mean, I've done the blood tests that they asked and all of that, but the follow through. So what I ended up doing, they did say to do like a food journal. So I did that. They asked for a week. So I did that, did the blood test, all of that stuff. So they could get like a baseline. I did that. Well, working, life in general happens and you forget about it. Or, it's not the top priority for what you do. And that's what happened. Well, having this hunger of always wanting to eat, I probably gained 125 pounds just from this med. Now I can say it's 100% because of this med. I can say that it was a part of it. There was other stuff going on, of course, depression makes you eat, stress makes you want to eat, anxiety for me I needed to eat. Anything that I would do for a coping skill, that was 100% of what that coping skill was for years and years. Not saying it's the healthiest, but also I noticed when I stopped drinking, that also increased the food intake, because I was going from one addiction to another, and I've done that my entire life. So the overeating part came in, and that's where I didn't stop. And my theory was having, what's better, continuing to drink like a fish, or at least I'm sober now, but I'm eating more. So it's still one extreme to the other in a way. So I am going from one addiction to the other, but both to excess isn't healthy. So over the years, I've also had to rein that in and figure out, okay, let's let's figure this out. I'm not very I am calculated in a way when I do things, but sometimes you're not in the mindset to count on, okay, I'm going to eat this many calories or I'm going to eat this portion, yada, yada, yada. What I did is I believe it's willpower. And to me, this is what many may not like, but I've always been the type of I'm fat and overweight and obese because I choose that. Now there are many different theories behind that some people, I've even heard some people say it's a disease. I don't believe that. I believe I'm fat and unhealthy because I don't exercise, I overeat, I don't give a crap most of the time, and I didn't have the mindset of overeating with all of this, not knowing the health benefits of, nutritious food and everything would come into play. That's why I decided finally, after 30 years plus, that I finally needed to figure something out. And so I was making those little decisions over time. And I've noticed that, when you feel, well, number one, you feel healthier. Even with 20, 25 pounds, you feel healthier. But then your clothes the first thing you do is, I don't like to weigh myself because I believe for me, it draws out, like if I'm not successful, like if I'm not losing 5 pounds or whatever every 3 weeks or whatever, I get down. I'm like, okay, what's the point? So, I see my doctors every 3 to 6 months. They weigh me in. So I get that idea. I mean, I do have a scale. So if I wanted to, I could weigh myself. But I believe at this point, you feel it within yourself that, okay, this is how, you're losing weight by the way your clothes fit. I believe is one of those things that makes you feel like, okay, I'm on the right track. You're going to have those days where you may eat a little bit more, but what I've decided, with this overeating was it's a mindset. Once you get down to the brass tacks, you figure out, okay, you're overeating. There's a reason why you're overeating. Let's get down to let's figure out why. And once you do that, you can make these steps to follow certain ways to be healthier, to lose weight, to still be happy, to not deny yourself. Meaning, like I do, like now, a stricter, like, okay, I haven't eaten fast food. And I mean fast food as in like going to In and Out, going to like, fast food joints in months. So and I haven't eaten drinking a soda. Well, I haven't drinking multiple sodas because that was another addiction that I had for years. I switched from soda to like sparkling water about a decade ago. So I really don't drink soda. And when I did, it's probably worse that I drank the diet with no sugar and, all that kind of stuff. But that's a whole nother story. So I even started back then and I don't really drink soda. I've decided, I decided way back then, let me replace it with something. I love water. I'm one of those freaks that enjoy the taste of water. And so I'll always have a water bottle and, I try to do the gallon. Sometimes if I'm working, I'll maybe do more. But what I'm getting at is the overeating part started years and years ago, but you have to have it within yourself because after all, it's an addiction and it could get out of hand and you can die after years and years of eating, especially the stuff that's in our food now. And the more research you do and all of that, you figure out that most of the stuff for you that you eat is unhealthy, but it just became a part of life and enjoyment, and with marketing and stuff like that, you're like, oh, I want to try that new item, or I want to eat that, or something like that. Going forward, it's all about being mindful and working on figuring out the root issue. Like, why do I do this? And I think and you don't have to get it 100%. I think once you get to a point, you kind of understand, you're like, okay, this is why it's going. This is why I'm doing it like this. This is why I'm eating. This is, all of these things. Cause the environment that you're in, that is a part of just your general things of why you eat and so forth. What I wanted to basically get on track was the fact that you have to take accountability. And these are all different mindsets. And once you get with that, go for it. Do the best you can. Just using your friends and family even to help. Just even doing that. And I'm a huge proponent of exercising, but I don't do it myself. I'm a proponent of all this healthy stuff. I'm doing it step after step, slowly, with like a 3% incline. So I'm gradually going, because like I said before, I'm a 0 to 100 type dude. And I've noticed that doesn't work. So believe it or not, this stuff does actually work if you want to work at it. And it's going to take a while, and it's a different way of eating. And it is, as corny as it sounds, it's a lifestyle change. And you have to be willing to do that, because you want to live as long as you can. You want to be there for your friends, your family. You want to enjoy life for as long as possible. Eating Carl's Jr. and McDonald's 30 times a week, most likely you're not going to live till 90. Your heart's probably going to give out. Your kidneys, your internal organs aren't going to be able to sustain that for very long, for decades and decades. Take accountability. If there's one thing you get out of this whole entire episode, take accountability and be honest with yourself. This is coming from someone that has lived with overeating for decades. You think at the time that, okay, it's only going to be this one meal, or I'll only do it for this day, but it becomes pattern. Like, even if you're really busy, you're going to use an excuse. I love excuses. I love using excuses. It's a downfall of mine, but I recognize it. So that's how I figure how I move forward. Like, any of us can make any excuse that we want. Okay, I don't want to get out of bed and go to work because of this or because of that, or I don't feel good. Bottom line, take accountability for your actions if you're an adult, which I hope 99% to 100% of my listeners are adults, or at least have the maturity to understand what I'm talking about. You're still living most of us still live under our parents' roof or a guardian's roof, whatever. Because at 15, especially with a teenage boy, our brains don't fully develop until 25, 26. Maybe they never do. Who knows? But what I'm saying is, when you're a teenager, you pretty much have an understanding of biologically how you feel when you eat. But if you were eating that way for so long, it just becomes, second nature to, okay, I think I'm hungry, but in reality, I'm just bored or something like that. So getting back to like the adult part and taking the accountability, not making those excuses, doing something. I can talk every day about making excuses and how one can ruin their life this way or that way isn't the best solution. We know as adults what we're going to do for the most part. Most of us have a routine and have an idea of what we're going to do for a particular day. And a lot of people, plan out meals they do that. That's where they do their portion control and stuff. If you're not that type of person, then you're not that type of person. I'm not that type of person. I'm on a spontaneous, I'm going to do what I want when I want type deal. But I do have the structure of going to work, doing my daily tasks that I need to do as an adult, that whole adulting thing. And that's where eating and fighting that urge to overeat so you can become healthy comes into play. These are all first accounts of how I've been dealing with the overeating for, like I mentioned before, over 3 decades. And yes, I believe it starts as a child, but once you get to adulthood and you're fully aware of what you should be doing and everything like that, the good, the bad, the moral part of it, and you take that accountability, that's where you can move forward and be like, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. It might not be the best at first. You're going to hate, especially if you've been eating unhealthy things for so long. Your body's going to be like, oh no, I want this. And that's when your mind, I believe, comes in and says, okay, that's where the choices come. You can be in a little discomfort. And I was watching a podcast, and a couple of podcasts, and they mentioned that that some discomfort needs to be part of everyday life. And once you think about it, you're right. They're kind of right in the fact that they do something once a day that's discomforting so they can move forward. And this particular podcaster does a daily cold plunge, which is basically, from my understanding, is you get in a tub that is like under 50 degrees or something, where it's super cold. And they do that in the morning before their shower or whatever, so they get that discomfort out right in the morning. Now, for the normal people like us, doing like a super cold shower in the morning to wake you up, to get your body adjusted or whatever, I think that was the main premise behind the one part of it. But the other part was the fact of feeling discomfort, doing something that's that you're not comfortable with in that kind of form. At first I'm like, that makes no sense. But life isn't really supposed to make sense, I don't think. And we're not supposed to be comfortable 100% of the time. I don't think we were made like that. I think there's supposed to be some level of stress, some level of anxiety, some level of discomfort, some level of negativity. And then that's how you move about your day. So I understand, after thinking a bit, I'm like, okay, this does make sense. Now, have I done the cold plunge thing yet? No. I've done the, cold shower thing, and that does wake you up. And, for me, it gives you that little shock of like, oh shoot, okay. And then my brain, I do have to say, does react in a more positive way. And then after about 15 seconds, you kind of get used to it. Now, I don't have like a thermostat necessarily on my shower, so I don't know necessarily the temperature. But with these cold plunges, I'm sure it has all of that. And, these guys they go to a specialist, and they train to make sure that they just don't get hypothermia and die. So I'm sure there's some, research and stuff that goes into that. And there's, physicians or specialists that get you involved, that you get involved with, or you have some understanding, or maybe you just want to just automatically be like, okay, you take what you understand of, this is cold and uncomfortable. I feel a certain way, so I'm going to get out. But that's what I was talking about with the whole discomfort. So you're going to figure out the first couple of days in this lifestyle change, in quotation, that your brain, and you're going to feel like, okay, I want this, especially if you've eaten like crap for most of your life. And I believe we've all tried to diet. We've all tried to, get out of that routine. But for me, having those impulses, once you go a couple of days, and me with carbs is like, okay, I don't know if I can, not eat those. I can definitely cut them down and something like that. So making that effort. But for me with like snacks and treats and stuff, I used to love cheesecake. I mean, I still love cheesecake, but I probably haven't had actually sat down and bought candy or anything like that for probably close to 8 months. Well, there was like a month and a half where I bought some cookies and stuff like that. But then after that, after I got that sweet tooth, I just stopped buying it. So I don't even keep anything really carb bread based in my kitchen, in my pantry, because I know how I am and I know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to eat it. And that's what it's meant to do. It's meant for consumption. So by not having food around, it helps a little bit because you can't go to it and eat it. And that's basically what I've done for that period of time and throughout my entire life. But I do believe once you get to a particular age, or just a feeling of, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm tired of, you take your health, I believe, more in question, and you're like, okay, I don't need this. And for me too, monetarily, no more door dashing 500, 600 bucks a month. That hits your account, likes you a little bit more when you don't always order out and always go to restaurants and stuff like that. My personal opinion, it's worked. And I might have been to the extreme with that. I'm sure not everybody orders DoorDash or Grubhub or even go out to restaurants and spend that. You do what you want to do at the end of the day, but overeating and being gluttonous, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart with no shade to anybody, we're all struggling. None of us necessarily wants to be unhealthy, but we're living this rat race of every day. And it is easier to go through the drive through and get something really quick. It is easier to order out, to do Grubhub, to do all of that stuff, because it's pretty much ingrained now in a lot of us, because there's 4 fast food joints on every corner of most streets in America. It's hard not to be like, ooh, they know how to advertise. They're not stupid. So having that gluttonous temptation of wanting to eat anything and everything, especially as a fat person, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're fat, you're obese, you're obese. It's just, there's no body positivity shit, especially when you're eating unhealthy and you choose that. Now, a lot of people may not like that. And as I mentioned earlier before, that I don't need to sugarcoat stuff. It doesn't work for me, and I don't think it works for anybody. So you want to have the honest, even though it may hurt or sound, bad, it's not worth it. In the long run, it's okay to say you're fat, you're obese. Now, I wouldn't recommend you going up to anybody that is and say that. That's not cool unless you're a big douchebag. But you could say, I say that to myself all the time. Now, may not be the healthiest necessarily. However, it's a fact. And facts are what drives people to one way or the other. So just keep that in mind of this is no disrespect to any person that's fat, overweight. We're a lot of us are just in that moment of not taking care of ourselves. And for whatever reason, just don't make the excuse, don't make it a plus that you're not doing it, because that's not going to help you. Body positivity, even though you're like 5'5" and 350, sorry, that's not body positivity. And this is coming from a fat dude myself who's been fat for a while. But I'm taking those reins of saying that's on me. That's on nobody but me. I'm a straight up adult male. I eat because I want to. I overeat because I want to. I don't do it because I'm forced to do it. There's no one with a gun up to my head that says, eat, eat, eat. No, there's not. It makes me feel good when I eat. It gives me those endorphins. You have that love of that, oh man, that feels so good when you eat the food you want. But you may just eat to excess. Just be rational about it. It's your health. And this is you're not gonna fix this in a day. You may not even fix it in a year. It may take a few, because it's a change. You're gonna have those discomforting days, and you're gonna have those thoughts of should I or shouldn't I? But just be honest. You have the right to change. There are many resources for that. I mean, the whole internet is there for motivation. It's there for information. It's there for everything. So you don't even need that though. You can just go ahead and walk a little bit more. If you have a meal, cut it in half. Odds are most of us that have been overweight know that we're overweight, that know we overeat. So we have an idea. We're not stupid. We just need to, within ourselves, grab that apple instead of a hot dog, or just don't get upset if you hear people make fun of fat people or something like that. It's not fun to hear, but the fact is a fact. And anybody that goes to the doctor, most of them don't sugarcoat either. They basically say, based on your results, if you don't fix this, you're going to die. That truth is hard to absorb, but it's there. So just keep that in mind. Again, this isn't throwing shade at anybody because I'm a fat dude, but I'm not going to throw it to doing that body positivity thing because it doesn't work for me. It's not going to work. I don't believe for anybody else. You don't need a poster person to say, hey, it's okay. Because in my opinion, in a way, it's almost like having an obese person come on the internet and saying it's okay to be fat is almost like a crackhead coming and saying it's okay to do crack. So take what you will out of that. But I mean, and I say this all the time, it's my opinion. And you can agree with me, disagree. Comments are welcomed. Any type of interaction is welcome. I'm not going to debate you. I'm just straight up saying facts. This is everything I lived through, but I take all accountability on that. And it could take you 50 times, and that's all right. Maybe the first 49, you have stuff going on or, something in your life, but at least you're trying. And I think at the end of the day, trying, understanding, trying. So I could almost say that, I am a professional at overeating. Just do that. Get that accountability, and either you're going to do it or you're not, and get through it. I'm at the time where I'm not getting any younger, and I can see where I need to change, but this has been a long time coming. This has been thought process of trying to feel better and everything like that. It's a very short time. Get to a better understanding and not overeating and getting that in check. So when I do go to my doctors, I don't get that harsh. You're at that time where you either need to quit eating badly and you're going to die versus, okay, I can see that there's some progression in your weight loss, your cholesterol, it's lowered over the last year or so. So you are making these steps and progression towards a better life. That's what I want to hear. And that's where I'm at this point. Now I could have on episode 106 of the Mind of Psychic, you got this. You can do this. It's all right. It's all right to fail. Failure means that you tried, and eventually, no matter what, you will succeed. Just take it step by step, day by day, little by little. Because everybody else, probably 0 to 100 is probably not that successful. Maybe for some people just don't have that feeling. They don't have that motivation to continue this stuff. But I digress. Any comments, anything, let's get those subscriptions in. Let's get those subscribe, like buttons. Let's get all of this. So I'm going to sign off here by saying recovery is not a race. That's right. Recovery is not a race. Take your time. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe and leave a comment. You can hear me on all major platforms and socials under the Mind of Psychic podcast. See you next time.